We should be good. Are we good on your side?
Yep, I think we're good.
All right, cool. Well, I'll start with an intro.
Okay, perfect. Do you want me to start it off?
I'll start. I'll introduce
Okay.
us, what we're doing. Well, I'll talk about what we're going to talk about, the title basically, me.
hmm
Then I'll ask you to introduce yourself, and then we'll start rolling.
Perfect. Okay.
Rock and roll. Cool. All right. Hi there. I'm Cullen Gilchrist, CEO and founder of Union Kitchen. Today we're going to be talking with Social Bulldog. It's part 6 of our series on social media and marketing. Today we're going to talk with Rachel, who is in charge of a lot of what they're doing over there with paid and media buying. And we're going to learn a lot about organic and paid and the differences and when and how and what and all the things that kind of go along with that. So Rachel, it's awesome to have you here and get to learn from you. You've done some cool stuff so far in your career. So you just want
Mhm.
to start off by just kind of introducing yourself, kind of what are you doing now, and you can talk a little bit about your background after that.
Yeah, of course. So at Social Bulldog, I got hired on about 5 to 6 months ago, so still fairly new to the team. I got hired on for doing media buying, but I actually do have a background in creative direction. I've helped oversee several brands' social media strategies, paid strategies, kind of all of the above. So I've gotten to assist with copywriting, creative direction, doing media buying. So I kind of do all of that with Social Bulldog. And I've had the opportunity to do a lot of that in recent roles, just with freelance work and professional work. So yeah.
So you have a good picture of kind of the whole world of these things.
Yes, of course. So obviously getting to manage organic social and also paid, I can kind of speak to both of those avenues and just the differences and where to focus your energy in each of those areas.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so you've been doing social media in kind of this world for how long now?
It's going on, I think, 4 to 5 years.
All
I
right.
did freelance work while in college, so I've kind of been working even before I got done with school. So I've taken several different freelance clients of different e-commerce brands. So I've
Okay.
worked with a jewelry brand out of Los Angeles. I've worked with an apartment complex out of Chicago. I've done work for an activewear company based out of Virginia Beach. So really brands all across the country of all sizes and different sort of marketing channels as well.
Gotcha. Well, and it sounds like they're all trying to sell something online now. That's the theme.
Yes, correct. Yep.
Very cool. So when you were getting started with this, were you always doing focus on paid marketing, or were you kind of more on this, I guess, organic side?
So it's funny, I actually got introduced to the industry through social media. So doing all of the organic stuff.
Yeah.
And that's something I really enjoyed. I have a background in doing photography and graphic design. So managing social media accounts kind of went hand in hand with that.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have to curate Instagram posts and stories and that sort of thing. And that was something I always really enjoyed. But a couple years into my professional career, I really wanted to expand into the agency side of things just because I really love getting to touch several different brands. As you can see,
Gotcha.
based on my background, I love working with brands of all different like shapes and sizes. I just think it keeps the creative flow like really fun
Yeah.
and every day's different. So I actually branched into more of the advertising side of things where I get to work with clients with different industries, but also help oversee their paid strategy and assist with social media as well.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, you've done a breadth of things, and I think that's important for kind of today's conversation. So
Yeah,
let's get started on that. I think that kind of the first thing is the title, right? We're talking about organic versus paid marketing. So
yeah,
let's just start off with definition. What's organic social media marketing, and then what's paid social media marketing?
yeah. So your organic social media marketing will basically be any of your owned channels that you're not paying for impressions on. This is kind of a lenient term or definition because you do have some owned channels that you do pay slight amounts to reach people for. Some examples of this would be email, text marketing, your Instagram and Facebook accounts, TikTok, LinkedIn, and your website. So obviously you do have to pay some sort of amount to have a website live, or you do have to pay some amount to send out text and email marketing. But basically, organic marketing is focused on relationship building. So these are people that are already familiar with your brand. They've either heard of you, like tried your products, or purchased from you in the past. So
Gotcha.
really your organic channels are just focused on continuing to build that relationship and keep them interested in buying your products.
So,
While the paid, oh, sorry.
oh, sorry, I was just gonna say, so it's people that have, or they've signaled to you that they want to learn more. They want to be a part of your community. They want to follow your
Of course.
channels and maybe already buy from you. So these are kind of your core set of people.
Yeah, so these are what we would call your warm leads. Basically, if you were in
Okay.
sales, these would be your people that are definitely the closest to purchasing from you if they haven't
Got it.
already. So you really want to focus your efforts on these channels towards building that relationship. So when we talk about email marketing, if they've added
Hmm.
stuff to their cart but haven't converted, this is where you'd send email follow-ups like, "Oh, we saw you were checking out these products. Don't forget to purchase them before they sell out." Those sort of things just to kind of keep them interested and keep that relationship going. And then we do
Awesome.
have your paid side, which will mostly be any sort of marketing where you're paying to reach users or to get reach and views. So this would be your platforms, basically any advertising platforms. So Facebook,
Okay.
Instagram, LinkedIn, Snapchat, TikTok, all of the above, and also platforms like Amazon. So Amazon does,
Okay.
you don't pay to be on Amazon, but if you do run ads or sell any products on Amazon, they do take a percentage of your profits. So that would technically be a paid channel as well. And then one last thing with paid would be any influencer marketing. So if you are paying any
Okay.
influencers to promote your product, that would fall within paid.
Awesome. So I got some questions. So you went through
Yeah.
a bunch of channels that you can do paid on. Are those basically going to be the same channels that you're doing organic on?
It depends. So really the difference between them, so newer channels starting out, for example, TikTok. TikTok is
Yeah.
very focused on organic social right now just because they don't have a large amount of advertisers on that platform. So when platforms are really new and they don't have advertisers paying them a lot of money to get impressions, it's really easy for you to achieve growth on those channels. So that's why we've seen over the last couple of years a bunch of TikTokers go from zero to like several million followers is because you don't have a large advertising base on that platform. So then
Yeah.
TikTok can afford to give free impressions to just everyday consumers. Versus Facebook, now that it's a developed platform,
Yeah.
it's a little bit harder to get impressions on there because the majority of their revenue is coming from advertisers. So obviously, the people that pay for impressions are going to get a wider reach than those that don't. So you'll really see that your organic reach on Facebook and Instagram isn't as strong as it was 5 to 10 years ago. So
Yeah. No, I
it,
remember
it
that.
does,
It's changed.
yeah, it changes over time. So that's why it's also important to hop on these newer platforms and get that organic reach while you can before they
Yeah.
become developed and start offering advertising features because growth on those platforms is a lot harder to achieve.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've certainly run into that, and we've seen other folks run into that. So you recommend kind of getting into these earlier ones, learning how to use them and build a touch, like I guess TikTok being a great example.
Yeah, of course. And it definitely depends on your brand and your target consumer. And we'll talk about this later on, but just picking the channels that will really pertain to your target consumer, because your target consumer isn't going to be on every single channel. And you really want to
Yeah.
focus on quality over quantity with platforms. So really
Mhm.
just focus on 2 to 3 platforms for organic and paid that'll get you to those target consumers. Because, of course, if you're on every channel, you're going to be stretched pretty thin.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. I was just thinking, I was like,
Yeah.
man, you got to do this, you got to do that, because you named like 10 different places.
Yeah. So you definitely don't want to be on all of them at once. It'll get a little overwhelming. And then it's also harder to achieve growth. So, how all of these platforms work, and I know Dan has talked about this in some of the other webinars, is you achieve growth. as the algorithm starts to learn how consumers are reacting to your ads. So you really don't want to have just small budgets on several platforms. You really want to focus on a few key ones. That way, the algorithm's able to learn which consumers are actually interacting with your ads, and will
Okay.
get you more consumers that will convert.
That's really good, actually. So, the what I'm taking from that is, both in an organic sense, focusing your time and attention on the most effective channels that have, your best version of the customer. Um,
Yeah,
Makes a lot of sense. But you're saying in the paid world, it's as true, if not more true, because the best way to see growth there is to make sure you can spend enough to start getting answers to the questions that your
yeah,
ads are posing. Gotcha. So
yeah,
spreading out
of course.
$100 across 10 of them is a lot less effective than, 500 into 2 of them, or 1,000 or
Yeah.
5,000. Okay.
Correct. And it's even harder if you're testing different creative concepts. If you only have $20 behind each ad, you don't really have a good understanding of if that ad wasn't performing just because it was the creative was bad, or
Mhm.
if you just didn't get enough of the right people to your site to actually have it convert. So that's why we usually recommend when you are doing creative testing on these platforms to test at least like $100 to $200 per ad to really get a good feel
Okay.
of if it actually is performing, um,
Okay.
and get creative learnings from it.
That's good. I like nice, like hard things like that. 100, $200 per ad. Let's start to teach you something.
Yep.
Awesome. Very cool. So we're talking a little bit about, how to do paid ads and how it relates to organic. Most people are used to organic, right? People have their
Yep.
personal social media. That's obviously pretty organic. I don't know, you know, many people that are paying on their personal social
Yeah.
to meet new friends. Maybe. But,
Yep.
so everyone's used to that, right? They get organic. Um,
Yep.
when should someone start doing paid? Like the minute they start their business, it's like boom, start paying because it's marketing time. Should they do that at, certain events? Should they do it, once they've been in business for a while? What are kind of like the ways you advise someone to say, hey, this is when this is when you should do more, and this is when you should go all out on the paid side of marketing?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't push anyone to start it as soon as they start their business, just
Hmm.
because it does require a little bit of thinking as far as, and this is something Dan talks to often too, but we need to have like a good basic understanding of how consumers are interacting on your site. How much is it costing you to acquire a customer? What's their average order value? And how much can you afford to be spending on these platforms to acquire each customer? So, really, we got to have some sort of data, and we can jump into it and kind of learn as we go. But if we have that data to start, then we know metrics that we should be aiming for on Facebook. So, if you know your average consumer spends $40 on the platform,
Hmm.
then we know that we want to acquire them at $20 or less for you to be getting a 2x ROAS. So really, we have to engineer it backwards to get a good like key performance indicator for each account.
Yeah.
And those cost per acquisitions does depend on just your overall business. So each business will have a different numerical value for that, and that's just something we solve over time. But also understanding that it is a lot of effort to set up these platforms and get them functioning. Usually, our onboarding process with clients is around a week long,
Okay.
and that's if we can set up all of the platforms and get everything running efficiently. Sometimes Facebook Business Manager does get a little finicky, like if you've boosted ads. Um, Basically, it can get really confusing on where your ads are actually going, what pages are linked
Yeah.
to what. So sometimes we do have to work with clients to get all of that solved. So I would say, as far as time frame, if you've been running or if you've been getting, I'm trying to think of how to phrase that. With Facebook, for it to optimize properly, we really want to be getting at least 50 purchases a day. Obviously, not all of our consumer or all of our clients are able to do that.
Yeah.
So, really, we can start whenever and we can start running traffic to your site. And that'll also help with Facebook performance as well, because basically we can retarget those consumers that are visiting your site with ads as well. So there's no definite answer on when to start, but I would say as long as you have a good basic understanding of how consumers interact on your website.
Gotcha. Well, it sounds like the more you've got, the better it'll work. Um,
Yep, correct.
gotcha. Always good. We talk a lot about in the accelerator in building your product, right? The first thing you want to do is figure out product market fit. Because once you have that, you can start kind of pouring resources, whether it's money or people or whatever, into it to really grow regionally and then nationally. And I think
Mhm.
similarly here, it's like you got to get something that works, right? You got to have a brand that people want to follow before you start pouring
Yep.
money into it, right? Because if no one wants to follow it, I don't think money will change that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's the same idea. Great. So I mean, and that's what I love about so much in business is it's a lot of the same themes, right? You're kind of learning again and again. Do something well, then you can grow it, and then you can leverage resources. In this case,
Yeah,
paid
of
marketing.
course.
Awesome. Very cool.
And
So,
sometimes,
oh, go ahead.
oh, sorry, I was going to say, and sometimes we have clients come to us and they will say, our target consumer is 25 to 35 years old. They're going to be a female, this and that. And then after we run ads, we really determine that maybe that's not their target consumer, and they can adjust their strategy. Because really, paid ads, you're reaching a lot of different users on Facebook and Instagram. So it helps you find, okay, what are the consumers that are actually purchasing my product, and do I need to adjust my strategy on organic social as well? So it kind of answers all of your marketing questions.
Yeah, that's really interesting actually, because I imagine with organic, you're bouncing, close to your own networks, right? You're
Yep.
kind of staying within this bubble, and paid can take you over
Mhm.
here and over there, and just completely different places, and you can
Yeah.
learn a lot about, who wants your product or who
Yeah.
likes your
And
ad.
with clients, yeah, with clients too, we really do find all sorts of different, um, I guess, like demographics when we dive into their account. So, like one client, for example, is a cologne company, and they recently found that a majority of their purchasers are coming from the Chicagoland area. But we also found that, and Facebook's been a little finicky recently, where you used to be able to set a broad audience and it would automatically target consumers just based on their interest. But with
Yeah.
all of the iOS updates, that targeting hasn't been as great. So we've been doing some targeting on our own end to solve for this. But we dove into this account and found that a majority of their customers are coming from Chicago, yet the city we're spending the most in is Los Angeles or San Diego, which is one of their fourth or fifth. So then we can adjust your strategy based on that too, where we start to do geo targeting. So if a majority of your consumers are from Chicago, let's target that audience with different forms of creative and find out what works. So you kind of have to just investigate over time and find what works for each area. And different areas will react differently to creative too. So it's almost like putting your investigating hat on and solving for different problems, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I do love that, especially if you think about geographies, right? I think most of us are probably organically collecting people that are geographically close to us. Um,
Yep.
and the idea that you can expand that, especially with e-commerce, that's a big deal, right? I mean, e-commerce shouldn't really care about geography too much.
Yeah.
That's a great finding. So, when someone is doing paid marketing, we've talked about a couple things they can expect. One, they can maybe learn a little bit about their customer. They can
Yeah.
learn, more about, broader sets of customers, maybe different niches, different descriptors. Uh, should they be expecting, finding returns on that? Should they be expecting, selling more as well? Or like what's kind of the primary here? Is it kind of the learning or is it the selling? How do you think about that?
So, the great thing about these paid channels is the growth that they offer. So, yes, you are paying for your customers, but the amount of customers that you reach is usually more efficient than your organic platforms. So, we really tell brands that are looking to grow their business that paid channels are the way to do so. So, things like Facebook and Instagram, and also like Amazon ads, those will help you reach different consumers that are shopping for other products, Amazon especially. So if someone's adding a bunch of different consumer packaged goods to their cart and then they come across yours and added in addition to that, you already
Yeah.
got a consumer that has purchase intent, but they didn't know about your product and now they're adding it to cart. And it's kind of the same thing with Google. So we push Google on a lot of our clients because it's such a great platform for both acquisition and retention. And you find people have a higher search intent on Google. So if someone searches for like vegan chips in Google and your product comes up, that's someone that already has purchase intent, but they're coming across your brand. So the conversion rates on those tend to be higher. And we
Hmm.
find the same thing with Facebook. So because Facebook has so many users, it's really inexpensive to achieve the reach that you wouldn't really be able to get on platforms like Snapchat or TikTok, where it's a little bit more expensive and less efficient to acquire new customers.
Got it. Well, good because I don't know how to use those ones. We're
Yeah.
st- I'm still learning tools. Um,
Yep.
okay, so a lot of good kind of pointers there and advice for thinking about paid marketing, and like when to and when
Yeah.
not to, and what to learn, what to expect. I one thing I'm thinking about is, okay, cool. I built some organic base, right? I'm doing some paid marketing, but what am I like? What does that mean? Like, I'm just putting money on the same posts I would otherwise do? Should I be doing different types of media and different types of content with paid? How would you advise someone they're thinking about the type of content?
Yeah, so I do recommend that your paid creative and copy is a little bit different than your organic copy.
Okay, that's
Obviously,
interesting.
on organic social media, you'll definitely have a certain amount of content that's promotional, but you also do other content that's just primarily entertainment or educational. And that's the main thing with social strategy is you're not just selling people 24/7, which is the main difference between organic and paid. Because obviously, for paid, the main objective is to have people either click through to your site or convert. So you're going to have them take some sort of action versus socials just mainly for awareness. And you can also use call to actions in your copy, but I wouldn't recommend doing it all the time. So I would say with paid social, you get a, I wouldn't say a better return because really it depends on each business. But for the most part, we find that it's a more efficient channel for a lot of our different clients because we can really set your metrics based on your average order value or how many customers we're getting to your site and really solve for that. And then we have a metric that we know we have to stick to. So we need like 2x platform ROAS in order for you to be efficient on your back end. So really, we help guide you for it to be an efficient platform for you.
Awesome. That's very cool. So if I'm making that content and I'm thinking about the platform, I mean, I guess I'm focusing probably more on things that are gonna drive a return, right? So, maybe
Yes.
with a call to
Yep.
action or going straight to the cart or straight to the item.
Yeah, and we definitely want to think about where the customer is in the journey. So, and this is one thing we assist with too. We don't expect our clients to do it on their own because this is obviously something we specialize in. So, if we think about, okay, we're targeting completely cold consumers that have never heard of your brand, they're going to
Hmm.
need a little bit more education on what your product is versus someone that's already purchased from you. So we can also cater the messaging to each consumer or each audience that we're targeting. And that's something to keep in mind as well, because obviously on organic social, a majority of your reach is coming from people that have already heard from you or already bought from you. So you can kind of get a little creative with the content that you're sharing, and you don't really need to explain what your product is as often as if we're targeting purely acquisition audiences that have never heard of you. So,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's great. Well, we learned a lot from you kind of on this paid stuff. I guess in kind of wrapping up, are there kind of other, tidbits, advice that you like to give folks as you start this conversation, they start this journey with their business?
yeah, so the main suggestions that we would have is just to really narrow your focus. I know we talked about this earlier, but you don't need to be on every paid channel and every organic channel. And you may have to experiment with different channels over time. If you find that Amazon isn't working for you, then shift to Google. And for your organic channels, if TikTok isn't working for you, then shifting to Instagram or Facebook and vice versa. It may take some experimenting with, but definitely don't think you have to be on every channel. And then the other thing I would suggest is just really knowing how consumers act on your site. And this is something I know we've touched on too, but having those metrics of just your average order value. You can even look into bounce rates and see, is your site functioning properly? And these are all things we assist with too, but just kind of learning how your consumers react. And one other thing that we usually bring up is just talking about your email conversion rates too. So if we did happen to run a sample campaign, which we've done with Snacklands before, so Snacklands had like a sample pack where we run Facebook ads specifically for that. And we usually want to know your email conversion rates just to kind of gauge like metrics that we should be looking for on Facebook and Instagram too. So if their conversion rate's only like a 10% for their email campaign, then we can reverse engineer how much we think we should spend to acquire a customer for that sample pack. So it's really a lot of data and analytics and experimenting, but it all kind of comes together in the end.
Got it. So, experiment, listen, learn, and kind of develop from
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
Kind of like with
of
everything
course.
else. Okay. Very cool. Well, Rachel, this is really helpful. I think people have a lot of questions on this sort of stuff. If you want to learn more, they want to learn more from Social Bulldog and from you, what's the best way for people to get in touch?
I would say over email. Our emails are pretty simple. It's just Dan and
Oh, good.
Rachel at socialbulldog.com. So pretty easy. But you can also find us on the website as well if you happen to forget. So it's just socialbulldog.com. But we're always
Socialbulldog.com.
available
Nice
to
and easy.
answer.
Oh,
Yep.
good. And I assume that's Dan. And I assume that's Dan at socialbulldog.com, and then separately Rachel at socialbulldog.com, right? Not Dan
Correct.
and
Not
Rachel.
together.
Shared it inbox, yeah, like my grandmother, and
Yep.
grandparents. Okay, very cool. Well, thank you so much, Rachel. This is awesome. Enjoyed chatting
Of
with you
course.
and learning about this. And I'm sure people have lots of other questions, and we'll keep learning.
Awesome. Okay, awesome. Looking forward to meeting other brands and hearing from you guys. We're always available to answer any questions. So,
Fantastic. All right. Well, you have a great day. You take care.
you too. All right, bye.
All right. Take care.